Welkom bij de podcast Zorg voor Zorgprofessionals. Een unieke podcast voor en door zorgverleners. Een plaats waarin we stilstaan bij onze worstelingen, maar vooral ook bij de groeikansen. Want eerlijk, de focus ligt vaak te veel op de cliënt, waardoor de zorgprofessional wat op de achtergrond verdwijnt. En wat nu net essentieel is in ons werk, is de relatie. Dus hoe kan jij nog dichter bij jezelf komen om zo heldere interventies te plegen? In deze vierdelige podcast neem ik jullie heel graag mee in het verhaal van je eigen zelfzorg serieus te nemen, van de moed die nodig is om te durven voelen, van de kwetsbaarheid van de zorgprofessional en van hoe we ons vuur brandend kunnen houden. Mijn naam is Stefanie Colaiani, dans- en bewegingstherapeut en mijn levensmissie is: hoe kan ik vitaal blijven functioneren, ook tijdens mijn werk? Deze aflevering zal in het Engels gebeuren, aangezien we naar het warme Italië reizen. We gaan in gesprek met Lorenzo Brocchini, klinisch psycholoog, voorzitter van de ISBP en bonding-psychotherapeut. De focus van vandaag is hoe wij onze eigen emoties reguleren als hulpverlener. Enjoy! Welcome, Lorenzo. Really what an honor to have you here on my podcast. I'm super thankful that you said immediately yes. And maybe it's nice for the audience, for the listeners, to let them know that we already know each other. I was thinking this morning, I think since 2021, I think that was my first bonding weekend. Yeah. And I also remember the next time I met you in a bonding training that I followed of you, there was more life energy inside of me. And yeah, that was a nice experience. I already introduced you in the intro, but maybe if we let loose all the titles and all the experience that you have, because you have a lot, how would you describe yourself?
Oh, I think my main target is to become a better human being. So to know through experience about life. And so I worked for many years in a therapeutic community with addicted people, and I led communities, and all the time I was in a process of learning. And through that process, I also went into bonding psychotherapy. And first of all, I made bonding psychotherapy for my better being. So I love bonding because it made me meet myself in a very deep wound that I had since my early days of life. And so I'm really pleased to share this experience with people, and mainly such deep experiences we can share not with words, but with body and straight with emotions and deep connections. So now I'm a therapist. I practice bonding and also analytical processes in individual and group settings. But into my heart, I really feel that to bond with people and to bond with the nature and to bond with life is the main objective of my work and experience in life. So to get really deep also in spirituality of life, what is the meaning of life we are all going through.
And maybe for the listeners, it's nice to explain a little bit what it is, the technique of bonding psychotherapy. In short, how can they imagine that what it is?
Nowadays, bonding is a bodily and emotion psychotherapy that works especially with group processes. So bonding was born after the meeting of two realities. One reality was the therapeutic communities for addicted in US during 60s and 70s of last century. And a man went into these communities. He was a psychiatrist, psychoanalyst, and his name is Daniel Casriel. He was analyzed by a person who was directly analyzed by Freud. So he was third generation of psychoanalyst. Imagine being on a sofa for 4 times a week or even 5 times a week, never seeing your analyst. So you were lying on the sofa and your analyst was on your back. And then he was asked to go into therapeutic communities by the government to see what was working for addicted people, because in that times there were no treatment specific for addicted people. And so he was a psychoanalyst trained in that way, going into such direct expressive groups where people would shout out their emotions, and they were allowed to express whatever about each other except with violence. So people could share their pain, their rage, their hate, their love, whatever. So he was really impressed by this movement of emotional expressive activities. And sometimes when he was there, he acted badly because he wanted to stop the process, assuming that he was in the right position to say, hey, I am a psychoanalyst, I know how it works, you cannot shout so much and then use all your energy towards the other person, because finally these people would hug each other after expressing emotion. And so he just went into this process to stop it. And people all around him just went against him, saying, you are learning here, so you sit down and wait. And so he could learn from this process. And actually, bonding psychotherapy grew into this meeting of psychoanalysis and encounter groups. And it evolved a lot since that time. But the basis of bonding are emotional openness, the maximum of emotional openness in the maximum of physical closeness. Because we mean bonding as the energy that keep together people since birth. So a mother with her child, they bond. They are connected bodily and emotionally. And there start to come up the wounds. We have many wounds about our bonds. And so we can go back into emotional openness and physical closeness to feel those deep wounds and to start to recover them. Okay, so it's a long process, and bonding goes directly through these actions that lead to emotional openness and physical closeness. What are the actions? Mainly, we have two main tools in group work. One tool is to bond with other people. That means to stay in the hug. We hug and we breathe together and we share emotion in the position of hugging. So it is very physical. And there is a way to hug. It's not just patting the shoulder of the other person, but is to connect physically and emotionally. So we can express our emotions as strong as we feel them. Okay, maybe I can say something about this a bit later. The other tool that we have is to work in circle. So one person with the group, and to take position in order to change old attitude. Bonding psychotherapy believes that people that grew in a painful situation, in difficult relationships, and people that bring wounds about relations, they made important choices since early childhood. So we maybe even don't know which kind of decisions we took, and we call this decision attitude. We have some attitude that are necessary to grow up in that place. So I took the decision maybe not to express my emotions, or not to express my rage, or not to express my pleasure, or not to say no, or the feeling that I cannot have needs because I am a weight for my mother, my father, or the situation where I live. So I took a decision very, very in all times, and I bring up that decision for all my life. So that is my basic attitude. And so we have emotional schemas. We call them emotional schemas that lead us into relationships. So as soon,
Can you give an example of this
yes,
affirmation?
yes,
I don't know if people
yeah,
understand what
sure.
it is.
I had a beautiful workshop last Saturday in Germany with professionals, and we worked out these schemas where people are in an ambivalent position. Sometimes we have the need for the hug of a mother, but then comes up the rejection of that need because that mother was not able to fulfill my needs when I was a kid. So I really need to go close to that person. And then when I'm close to the person, I reject her. I push her away. And that may happen in present life, maybe with my girlfriend, with my wife, with the other women I meet in life. This old pattern comes up and I don't know why. I want to get close, and then at that same time, I want to reject and to push away. And so I get in a third position that is this ambivalence. And it is so difficult to change ambivalence because bothly I feel the need to go forward and the need to go away, both ways. Okay, so yes, we bring these old decisions into our life, and those old decisions were so important to survive and to get through that situation. But nowadays, they become something, an emotional partner, an emotional schema that doesn't let me free to really go into relationships, maybe, or to get too strong into relationship in order to depend to the other. So I think any of us bring some of these wounds. When these wounds are too heavy, they become clinically significant. So they become so heavy for the life of a person that she or he needs to change that pattern.
Yeah, that's super interesting. There's a few things that I want to pick out. That it's what I stand for is I call it emotional hygiene. Yes, it's so important to work also with your emotions and work through some topics, not only with the conception or the head, but also with the emotions. And that's what bonding is doing, of course, and other body therapy methods. But what I also see is it's for a lot of caregivers and in general for people, a big step to go into those methods with the body. The step is sometimes too big. I don't know if you also recognize that in your work.
Yes, I meet a lot of people. I train psychologists, psychotherapists, and sometimes I meet also medical doctors and nurses. These people, or also priests, okay, and educators. All these people are in their mind people who want to help the other. So they are very good in taking care about the needs of the other, and sometimes they are not very good in taking care of their needs. Either they want to reach the fulfillment of their needs through fulfilling the needs of the others. So they get stuck in a giving position that drains them, okay? All the energies go to take care of the other. So when we offer workshops for psychologists and psychotherapists, sometimes they're really in a new position because they went into their experiences through their mind, but they didn't reach the deep experience of their emotions into that moment, okay? Also in the very past. Sometimes I meet my colleagues and they are so eager finally to work out their emotions because we don't, as I was saying, bonding psychotherapy sees 4 levels of expressing emotions, okay? And we try to work at level 3 and level 4. And we mean level 3, gut level. It means that you really feel your emotion in your gut and in your belly and in your throat and in your body. It's bodily feeling of emotions. And you can express them with the body. Sometimes words are not enough to say things. They're too mental, too cognitive. The 4th level we call identity level of expressing emotions. So when we work with emotion at level 1, 2, or 3, these emotions are mainly directed towards someone else. So they're directed towards my mother, my father, my husband, my colleague, towards God, towards life. Finally, when I am at level 4, I am so connected and so into my emotions that I am my emotions. So the feeling that I am my rage, I am completely immersed in my rage. I'm completely immersed in my fear. I'm completely immersed in my pleasure. Okay? This gives me a possibility because sometimes people who come to groups and come to therapy, they say, I don't know anymore who I am because I don't know. I made so many mistakes. I changed so many times my partner. I don't know which way to go, and I know who I am. So I understand that it's difficult to believe this, but sometimes it's so necessary to feel at least that I am my emotion. It's a starting point, because finally, if I feel I'm completely my rage and I'm really like a volcano and I want to say no, okay, and then I take that energy to take the next step, to take a decision where to go in life. For example, it's very difficult what I see with medical doctors, because they are very good to practice helping others, but they don't practice helping themselves. Instead, mainly psychologists and psychotherapists, they are taught to take care of themselves as wounded people, to learn through their wounds to help the others. Everybody, every day, we project on others parts of ourselves, so we live in a transference. And it is normal that I go around and I see maybe a person looking like my mother, my father, my daughter, my wife, etc. So I live with transference. But me, as a psychotherapist, I have to start to know which parts of me are wounded and start to know which parts of me are activated by the transference of others. And what happens in group when we work in the circle is that we activate a lot of this stuff. For example, one of my difficult counter-transference is that when people attack the group, some of the people in group, finally, they don't want to work out what's happening, and they act badly towards the group, maybe towards one participant of the group. Then, in that moment, I feel the rage as if I was attacked. Okay, this is my counter-transference, and I have to manage this because I go into protection, not of the group, but of myself. I identify myself with the group as a group leader, and so I risk to react with rage towards the person that is protecting himself through his own rage towards the group. And this is a important thing to recognize moment by moment. We are full of weaknesses. So one of my clients, when she was into a psychoanalytical therapy for years, and one day my emotion came up because of her history, and I started to cry. But it was not crying about my life, but crying about the suffering I was feeling in her life. In that moment, I was connected as a human being. Okay? And so she said, oh, but you're suffering. Oh, yes, so you're not finished to train. You're not a superhuman, let's say. And I said, no, I am not a superhuman, and I will never be. The most powerful way to stay in life is accepting life as it is. So sometimes people want to stay in life without feeling their pain, without feeling their rage, without feeling their joy, their pleasure. And they cut, not voluntarily, but they cut parts of themselves. And so I don't receive all the information I need for life. And if I want to
receive, less connected.
Yes, less connected, and I try to direct the relationship with other people in the way not to be hurt, in the way not to feel pain, in the way not to feel rage. We try to let people go into their primary emotions, because we believe that primary emotions are good informations for life. Every primary emotion, so rage, fear, pain, pleasure, love, and disgust, these simple emotions are good for life. Even if I feel tension about rage or fear or pain or disgust, I feel tension, but it is a good message for me.
Can you explain a bit? Because oftentimes what I see and what I myself also experienced in the beginning, I was afraid of rage. And I remember the first bonding weekend that I followed with you was exploring my rage, and there was really a lot of rage coming out. What do you see when people go into their rage after that? Because oftentimes people are afraid of the rage, but when they go through it, what do you see then afterwards?
Usually we feel rage because we feel something is blocking us or something is unfair toward us. So going through rage, we feel the energy of going against this block or this action that is unjust. And then it doesn't mean that I have to act violent. because there is a nice distinction between the energy of rage and the action of violence. So sometimes people, and we see in television, some young guy maybe, they kill father and mother, and people around them say, hey, he was such a good guy. What happened that he killed his mother and father? He was not a good guy. Maybe he was repressed in all his rage for 20, 25 years, and then he blew up suddenly with this violence. So he was not trained in all his life, moment by moment, to recognize emotion and to say and to express his emotion. Emotions don't kill. They don't kill. If you express emotion, then you feel the power of your energy, and then you take decision about your action. Otherwise, you are acted by your emotions. If we are trained, for example, in recognizing emotion, then we can direct the energy of emotions. This is very important to learn it since childhood. Otherwise, people are not trained. They may be into their deep frustration for so long. And finally, when that emotion comes up, then maybe it turns people into acting with violence. And violence is either towards someone else or either towards myself. I can act violence. This is very important, that people are afraid they cannot go through their emotions. They were not taught.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah, and I can also add my last experience in the bonding training with you. I think it was for the first time that I stepped into a place, I cannot say something concrete, but fear. I stepped into fear. We did a few exercises, and then we could go into the circle and work on our affirmations, on our attitudes. And I really felt my body was so shaking, and you were there together with Caroline to hold me. And I think the most powerful aspect of this exercise was not that I was feeling the fear, because it's fearful and it's not nice and not pleasant. But the fact that you both were holding me and that I could be totally in the moment and that I could give space to my fear and at the same time not be afraid, because I was not alone in the process. And for me, that was very vital and yeah.
And this is
co-regulation,
right.
regulate.
Right. That is emotional regulation, what we call it. And sometimes it's very funny when I hear that the therapist has to help the client to regulate his own emotions. But I think if I go in the position of a kid feeling that kind of fear, what helps me to regulate emotion is the body of the other. It's not only the words of the other. I have to feel that my body is completely connected and held by the other, and that the other is there to connect with me and to regulate with me as long as it's needed. Sometimes when we do an exercise that we call bonding on the mat, that is laying on a mat with the other client, then people may go into very deep experiences of their memories or in the past. And I go close to some people and I ask them to open their eyes and to look into my eyes. In that moment, I hold one hand and I share eye contact in order to let the person feel and see through my emotions that it's possible to stay there together, and they can express their pain and they can express their fear. And I'm there as a good father, as a good mother, as a good human being close to you to help you in regulate this emotion. Sometimes it happens that people learn to regulate their emotion. Now I just focused a woman that was in groups, and she was so good in regulating by herself her own emotion through rage. She always went into this such deep rage because she had very violent experiences in her past. So she learned to go into rage and to react and to protect herself through rage. But she was never recovered from the pain she received because she couldn't go deeply into that pain because she was feeling by herself. So it happened that I saw this process of being stuck.
Yeah, that's super interesting. That's really oftentimes the topic that comes up with caregivers is that we can do it ourselves. And I help you because I'm a therapist or psychologist, and I help you to regulate. But that it's what you said in the beginning, it takes so much energy. If you don't have your own places to regulate, to co-regulate actually, that's so essential.
You remember, I was in Belgium for, I think, the second or third time. I was introducing myself on the Friday evening, and there was a woman who was attacking me just straight away. There were two people that finally didn't come to the next day. One woman, she was pregnant, and I asked her not to stay in the process because it could be dangerous for her in that situation to go under such a deep process during her pregnancy. But the other woman who didn't know me and I didn't know her, in the very moment I started to introduce myself, she started to attack me as if I was the worst person in the world, And that was so painful for me that I was coming from Italy to join a group in Belgium and feeling so badly attacked that I tried to be in contact with her in order to have her in the group, but we couldn't manage. And this was so painful for me that after that session of introduction, I had to go out and I cried out my pain with my assistant. I asked her to be regulated by her together, to share my pain and the feeling of suffering, to be attacked so in an unjust way.
Yeah, and so beautiful that you could then take the space and say, I have to co-regulate to be totally present again. Huh?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. This is something that may be difficult to understand and to accept for colleagues, for therapists. And I try to make a distinction about my emotions, about my life. So if I have troubles with my history, if I have troubles with my family, if I have troubles with my work, then I have to take a space for my troubles. That is my own supervisor and my own process that goes on even after many years. The other part are the emotions that I receive through the group, through the action in the group. So sometimes I really am touched by maybe a person. I have a client who brought up the bad violence she received by her father. Okay, very many times she was beaten up by her father, and that scene we built up together was so terrible to see in that moment that I really felt as a terrible father myself. I felt as I was almost killing my daughter. And I have 3 daughters. So in that moment, that was so unbearable for me that I went into pain and went into rage for such a cruel way of acting. And so I asked to be regulated by the group. I said, I need, because this is too painful to bear. And to be a man in this position, in this moment, I would just disappear, I would just... And so I asked the group, I was helped to regulate, and then I said, okay, now I'm fine, let's go ahead. And actually, when it happens, it takes such a short time for me to re-regulate because I know the process and I don't have to work out my own history all the time, but I have to work out what comes up. And sometimes we call it an exposure to a secondary violence. It's not the primary violence that the client received, but I am touched and beaten as well through that emotion.
Maybe as a last question, if you could give any tips for the caregivers who are listening, what could they do as first steps?
To show that us as professionals are also human and our needs are good and we can take care of ourselves. Then, of course, have a personal space about everything to rework what happens and to be looked as a person from another point of view. The third thing is for me to have good relationships outside. And so never forget that we need as human beings to have good places in life. It's not only a good place in therapy. That's not enough. A good place has to be in life. So when I go home, when I go to have my dinner with my friends and to play tennis for me, so time for ourselves in life. finally, sometimes I wake up at night and I don't feel good and I don't even know why. So I have to take time for myself. And so I usually, when it's a bad feeling, I don't stay in bed. I go downstairs in a place. I stay on a carpet and I pray and I meditate. And it takes time for me to stay with what I'm feeling and open into it also in a spiritual way. So I think there are different levels to take care of ourselves. This is what I do for me. So it's not a law. It's what I learned to give myself in order to be well.
Oh, that's so beautiful. Yeah. Thank you so much. Maybe there's one more question. Where can they find you?
You can find many information on the international site of ISBP, International Society of Bonding Psychotherapy. We put on some flyers about workshops. And I have usually at least one international workshop in Italy in June. And people can come and stay in the countryside and can go also to the beach. And then we have emotional workshops.
Zo bedankt dat je de tijd nam voor jezelf om mee te luisteren. Misschien heb je iets herkend, heeft het iets geraakt of misschien heeft het jou aan het denken gezet over de relatie met jezelf, over je eigen zelfzorg of over de manier waarop jij in de zorg staat. Mijn grootste wens met deze podcast is om taboes te doorbreken, om te durven voelen en om het niet alleen te dragen. Voel je diep van binnen dat je verder aan de slag wil met thema's die jou raken, dan ben je heel erg welkom op onze zelfzorgmomenten. Voor meer informatie www.rebody-remind.org. En wil je deze podcast delen met een collega, een team of binnen je organisatie, dan help je niet alleen mij, maar ook zoveel andere zorgprofessionals. Laten we het gesprek openen, want duurzame zorg begint bij duurzame zorgverleners. Tot de volgende aflevering. Ciao!